So Mike Zimmer gets fired after 8 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. He had a pretty good record. I think he was about 20, almost 20 games over 500, 72 and 56. Thank you for that. He was 72 and 56 and won as the head coach. Took his team to the playoffs 3 different times. 2 and 3 in the playoffs when he got there. One of those wins was with Kirk Cousins. The other win was with Case Keenum when they actually went to the NFC Championship game in 2017. So Mike Zimmer might be a surprise to people who were not paying attention to what was going on in Minnesota, because you're like, oh, well, the Vikings are usually in the playoff hunt. They've made the playoff. They made an NFC title game. They went 13-3 that one year. Why is Mike Zimmer out? And prevailing sentiment in Minnesota was that it's been 8 years. We brought in Mike Zimmer. We brought in Kirk Cousins. We spent all this money on all these different pieces, and it's just not yielding the results they expected, because Minnesota didn't just expect to be a team that's in the hunt for the playoffs. They expected to be in the playoffs and competing for a title. And at no point since they brought in Kirk Cousins has that been the case. And only one point, honestly, were they actually a threat to go to the Super Bowl, and that was in 2017. That was the only time in the Mike Zimmer era where they were actually capable, I think, of going to the Super Bowl and considered legitimate contenders. Finishes 8-9 this year, under 500 again after a 7-9 season the year before. They made the playoffs 10-6 the year before, but it's just been mediocrity. They have been one of the most mediocre, just flat teams I've seen in such a long time. It got to a point where I just expected them to tie a game or two, because they're just perennially finishing at 800. That's what they do. They're like right around that 800 mark every year. And I think once you stomach that for so many years, and you see that you have Dalvin Cook, you see that you have Kirk Cousins, you see that you have a good defense, you have all these great pieces, and it's not working, it kind of reminds me of the Marvin Lewis situation in Cincinnati for a long time. Because no one's saying that Marvin Lewis wasn't a good coach. No one's saying that Mike Zimmer isn't a good coach. Mike Zimmer's going to have a job, whether it's as a defensive coordinator, which is most likely the case, or in some other capacity. He's going to have a job next year. But the problem is he was just around for too long and didn't have much to show for it. Two playoff wins in 8 seasons with the team that he had and they had constructed. You could see why they would want to move on and get some new life, some new inspiration, and get that team revved up. This is a team that, I don't know why, it just seems like they just are not into playing football. They are just not excited. They show up. Minnesota is one of those teams that just shows up and plays. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't, but who really gives a fuck, right? And it was just time for them to move on. And I think that Mike Zimmer's departure, the turning point for that, honestly, was when they brought in Kirk Cousins. Because that put the pressure on Mike Zimmer. That automatically put the pressure on Mike Zimmer. It said, all right, we brought in Kirk Cousins. Say we can think whatever we want to be, but Kirk Cousins was brought in as to be the guy. They gave him the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history, and then the second fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. They gave him those contracts because they said, this is the guy who's going to put us over the edge. Case Keenum, shit can, down the road. All right, cool. Thanks for what you did. But then Kirk Cousins comes in. All right, we're going to win a Super Bowl. And at no point were they ever contenders after that. Never. Never, never, never. And it might just show you how important that decision to move on from Case Keenum, who they could have had for cheaper, who probably would have helped keep Stephon Diggs around, who probably would have been better to run that offense around. It shows you how much of a difference that was, because as soon as Kirk Cousins comes through the door, the pressure was on for Mike Zimmer, and at no point did the team ever just look like they were going to live up to their potential. And it's sad because Mike Zimmer is a good coach. He's a really good coach. I want to be clear about that. Mike Zimmer is one of the best defensive coaches I think there is in football. He was when he was a Bengals coach. He was when he coached some of the best defenses with the Vikings. I think it's just he overstayed his welcome and didn't have much to show for it. And that's okay sometimes. It's okay to move on and try to find a new vision and a new direction. And that's what I think the Vikings need. I think the Vikings need a new direction. And whoever it may be, maybe it's the guy that I'm about to talk about next. I think that it's going to hopefully inject some life into this team, because that's the word I was looking for earlier. The Minnesota Vikings for the past few seasons have just seemed lifeless. This team has just seemed lifeless. There's no energy. There's no ambiance. I don't think anyone's excited for the games. Thanks for watching this video from Real Take Sports Talk. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Also, remember to check out our live show every single Thursday at 8 p.m. right here on the YouTube channel. And remember, keep it real.